Oh, hello. I'm Dan Lathrop. I'm a scientist and engineer at the University of Maryland, and just wanted to briefly talk to everybody here about a way to think about a safe and secure career planning process. So the real issue that I want to do in this video is to talk about various ways of thinking about career planning, which include a lot of advice that would apply whether or not you go to grad school. But let's just start with that question. Is grad school right for you? I think that if you've enjoyed taking classes as an undergrad, if you think you might enjoy taking more advanced classes as a graduate student, and if you think you might enjoy independent research, then graduate school might be right for you. If, on the other hand, you have financial demands that are timely, if you really don't want to take any more classes, just launching a career as out of undergraduate would make more sense. And there's no right answer to this question. Now, the next thing is that, let's say you decided that you do want to go to graduate school. What might you study? Well, if you got an undergraduate degree in a STEM field, and this video is really aimed primarily at people in STEM fields, then you could really consider graduate studies in many other areas. And I've seen people from physics go to engineering. I've seen mathematicians go to physics or engineering. I've seen engineers go and get physics degrees. It's just, people pivot to geosciences often with all sorts of degrees. Really think expansively. The simplest thing, of course, is to just get an advanced degree in the things that you study as an undergraduate. Now, can you afford graduate school? So if you apply to and get into a PhD program at a major research university, they will generally pay you a stipend that you can live off of and will pay your tuition. You might have to pay fees still, but it's something that you should not have to pay to go to graduate school. On the other hand, for most master's programs, if you apply and get into them, they will make you pay tuition and they might not give you a stipend. But if you apply and get into a PhD program after taking your classes, you can usually at most universities ask for a master's degree and just exit with a master's degree. So I strongly suggest applying into PhD programs if you want to go to graduate school. It's important to get organized for your applications, and we'll talk about that in some detail. Now, whether or not you go to graduate school, I strongly advise that you think about having a career plan and also a backup plan. And that really involves different things, constraints, we'll talk about in the next slide. I suggest always find out what your options are and then decide. Don't decide on a narrow path that is not necessarily an option. It's good to have both short-term goals, but the short-term goals would be best served if you have a long-term goal so you can then take steps in that direction. Now, okay, so let's say you have a plan. Why would I have a plan? We're heading into Thanksgiving break here. Having a plan at least allows you to speak to family members or other people's, and if they ask you what's your career plan, you can just articulate. I'm thinking about this degree, and then going into this job sector, working on this science or technology or math, and then that might save them. Okay. Now, I also suggest having a backup plan. So let's say your plan is get a PhD and go to industry. Maybe you want a backup plan. I'm going to just go directly into education and teach instead. And the reason for a backup plan is that it may turn out that you find that your plan was actually not a very good plan. In the end, you need to pivot and think about an alternative. If you already have a backup plan, when you decide you need to pivot, that's not a crisis because I'm just now turning toward the backup plan. And it reminds me of something that's said in mountaineering that getting to the top is optional, getting down is mandatory. And I usually put this in my own words. Okay, our plan is we're going to go try to hike up this mountain. But if the weather turns adverse, the backup plan is get off the mountain now. It's a matter of safety. And people that don't have a backup plan and stick to a fixed plan when it becomes obvious end up being quite miserable. Ideally, you will have skills that both you're good at and you enjoy, and you should focus on those things. Don't come up with a plan or a backup plan that focuses on things that you're not naturally enjoying. Okay, constraints, preferences. Okay, it's good to have constraints, it's good to have agency, it's good to have preferences. How many you should have is a complicated question. So for examples of constraints, you might have location constraints. Some cities you want, some cities you don't. You might want to be on the East Coast, you might want to be on the West Coast. You might want to be close to family. You maybe should have some preferences about job sector, industry, academia, federal R&D, although I suggest having a plan be one of those and a backup plan being another one of those, just because they vary in health over time. And then preferences for activity. So most STEM scholars do some combination of hands-on work, be it experiments or design or build. Numerics is extremely important, simulations. Some people do analysis. And then there are others that actually, in the earth sciences or astronomy are observers. Think about the activities, both in those broad sectors, but also the data activities. What do you want? Do you want to work with your hands? Do you want to code? Do you want to, work on uh, in a team? Do you want to be designed? Just think all that through. Okay. Now, if you are going to apply to graduate school, to make it simpler, it's better to be very organized. And to make it organized, what you can do is make a spreadsheet. And I've mounted here a spreadsheet that I made with help from Paul Lathrop, who now works in industry. And so things that would go in the spreadsheet. Well, you want to know for each of the locations you're thinking about doing, here we've just put a row for the location. And you want to find out what they're offering in terms of funding, let's say for a PhD program. You want to do your research about each individual place, and I'll detail that below. You want to be super organized just to reduce stress and have a backup plan. Okay, so here's a spreadsheet. We've color coded it. Green means you finished that step. Blue means you made first steps in that direction. Yellow means you're waiting for something, and red means you've just been rejected. So here, some examples. So we're applying to CU Boulder in mechanical engineering degree and master's. We've identified a professor that's very important in applying to grad school. We've done a backup research on what they do. So Professor Blah works on statutes bridges. Professor Med does swinging bridges. They've got a GRE deadline and a deadline for the application to Colorado, deadline for letters of recommendation. I've asked letter writers here in green. There's a link to their URL to apply. I've got a username and password for my applications portal. And then, you could put in pros and cons, just, pick another example, number 11. So applying to University of Maryland, decided I wanted to do linguistics. I found faculty in that. And, I put in the link for that. So in any case, just be organized, and that simplifies things, and, meet the deadlines. They're not soft deadlines in most cases. Okay. So the two most important things that will craft your career are your skills and your professional network. Now that's assuming you got everything else lined up. You show up, you're engaged, you're bright, but I, if you're watching this video, those things are already in place. Okay. So let's think about skills. When you make a resume, you want to talk about your technical skills, and STEM people offer those up easily. And here's some examples from a student group. So programming, writing, experimental skills, problem solving, data analysis. But you want to talk about non-technical skills, teamwork. Absolutely critical for you to think about teamwork, writing, time management, speaking, public outreach. Okay. And then be able to detail those, only put items that you're prepared to defend in an interview. Your professional network's absolutely critical, and the reason is that many STEM jobs are obtained not by applying to ads, although some are, but by having people that you know who know you, and they know what your skills are, and they hear of somebody else that has a problem that needs solving, that needs a set of skills, and they reach out to you and they ask you to interview. Okay. Your LinkedIn page can list your skills, and you can get interviews directly off of LinkedIn if your skills are there and people need someone with your skills. Workshops and conferences are a good place to do networking if you can go those. And when you go give talks at places, let's say at a workshop or conference, be explicit when you're seeking a job. Just at the end of the talk saying, by the way, I'm graduating and I'm looking for positions, and then just, another sentence about what sort of positions. And be as aggressive as culturally appropriate in seeking out contacts in your professional network toward your career advancement. So, an aspect of your professional network are mentors, and you should think clearly and carefully about how many mentors you have and how many you should have. Now, a mentor is generally a senior person who's had a career experiences, has made mistakes, is caring about their mentees and wants to see their mentees do well. And the reason to have a mentor advice, and maybe have several mentors, is that of course you're going to get advice from your peers, but your peers may not have had a career. So at that point, they're just telling you urban legends, which are completely unvalidated, where your mentor may have had any number of different jobs, have successfully navigated getting jobs, have thought about their careers, and can give you concrete advice out as to how to make things go smoothly. So that's it. I just wanted to make this concise, and I hope that all of you have found this video helpful, and good luck.